Voting in Lechko Kowloon West by-election underway until 10:30 this evening. Ko Wen-je re-elected Taipei mayor, but the result is contested by his KMT rival. And unanimous support for the Brexit deal from European leaders.
Hello and a very good evening. Tens of thousands have cast their ballots in the city's latest by-election. They will pick a new lawmaker in the Legislative Council Kowloon West geographical constituency. It's the second by-election this year for voters in Kowloon West after two lawmakers were disqualified over their Lechko oaths. This one aims to fill the seat vacated by Lau Siu Lai. The latest official figures show that by 6:30 p.m, more than 158,600 people have voted in this by-election. The cumulative voter turnout rate is 32.56%, which is lower than the by-election held in March. Voting ends in about 3 hours from now. The Electoral Affairs Commission has so far received more than 210 complaints. Most of them were about campaign advertisements. There are 5 candidates vying for the post. Here's Caleb Long with a recap of their election platforms.
Candidate number 1 is Dek Hei. The 54-year-old IT professional is running on a platform that calls for tenancy control, increased public housing supply, and the introduction of more overseas doctors. He is strongly against Hong Kong independence. Candidate number 2 is Zheng Li Wen Judy. The 50-year-old housewife listed social movement and anti-real estate hegemony as her profession. She is against land reclamation and bid rigging and supports cash handouts as a relief measure. Candidate number 3 is Lee Chuk-yan. The 61-year-old Trade Union General Secretary is a member of the Labour Party. The sole candidate backed by the Pan-Democrats, Lee strives to fight for democracy and freedom and say no to mainlandization. Candidate number 4 is Fong Kin Ki Frederick. The 65-year-old didn't report his occupation or political affiliation. His platform is great again, listing 4 policy areas: healthcare, housing, the elderly, and education. Candidate number 5 is Chen Ho-yan. The 41-year-old is the former CEO of a social enterprise. She also did not report her political affiliation. She is running on a political platform that calls for breaking limitations. Caleb Leung, TVB News.
Well, our reporter Christy Leung is at Cheung Sha Wan Sports Centre. She's been there all afternoon, braving the rain. Christy, voting's been slow but steady. What else can you tell us there?
Thanks, Tony. There are more than 70 polling stations, and this one caters to the largest number of voters, which is around 12,800. Since polls opened this morning, more than 4,000 people cast their vote there. So I spoke to some of them. Some elderly people told me that they want more medical and housing welfare. Some looked as their civic duty to come out despite the heavy rain. But still, a man told me he cast a blank ballot as he couldn't see potential from the candidates. So when voting ends at around 10:30 tonight, this polling station will turn into a counting station. So that's all from me for now. Back to you in the studio.
Okay, our thanks very much to Christy, who was reporting live from Cheung Sha Wan. On to some other news now, and more election news. Taiwan's ruling Democratic Progressive Party lost control of many city and county governments in local elections yesterday. Meanwhile, the independent mayor of Taipei, Ko Wen-je, was re-elected by narrowly defeating his closest rival, the Kuomintang's Ting Shou-chung, by just more than 3,200 votes. But before the count was finalised, Ting started to contest the result. Haley Zhou has more on this.
A narrow victory for Taipei's incumbent mayor Ko Wen-je. The results revealed he won by 3,254 votes over the opposition Kuomintang's Ting Shou-chung. Ting contested the results and asked for a recount. Ko, a former surgeon and independent politician who claims to be pro-Taiwan, has a strong support base among young voters. He said this is a victory for Taiwan's democracy. Surpassing the blue and the green camps doesn't mean wiping them out. It's really to allow Taiwan to become a more harmonious society. Blue is the color for the Kuomintang or the KMT, while green is the pro-independence Democratic Progressive Party, which suffered a stunning defeat. Ko is the only independent mayor of Taiwan's 6 special municipalities. Yesterday's elections have repainted the map of Taiwan from green to blue. The KMT won control of 3 of the other 5 special municipalities, including Kaohsiung, the DPP's traditional stronghold, as well as the island's second-largest city of Taichung. The only remaining 2 are won by the DPP. This election was widely seen as a midterm report card for Tsai Ing-wen and her government, as it was the first election since she became president 2 years ago. The outcome, Tsai and her party failed big time. She took responsibility and stepped down as the DPP chairman. She said her resignation will have no effect on the business of government. But political commentators say it could make her a lame duck president and lower her re-election chances in 2 years. Also, her stance on the One China principle has not only deteriorated cross-strait relations, but also dampened Taiwan's economic growth. And that's what KMT candidates promised the people of Taiwan, to have less friction with Beijing and boost the economy. Aside from that, another defeat for pro-gay marriage campaigners. In referendums held yesterday, Taiwan voted against legalizing same-sex marriage. The electorate also opposed to compete under the name of Taiwan instead of Chinese Taipei at international sporting events. Haley Zhou, TVB News.
Beijing responded to Taiwan's election outcome, saying it reflects the strong will of peaceful relations across the Taiwan Strait. In a statement, the State Council's Taiwan Affairs Office welcomed further exchanges between both sides. It also reiterated strong opposition to any forces for Taiwan independence.
And in response to media inquiries, the US State Department congratulated Taiwan on completing a democratic election, a system that sets an example for the entire region. In Europe, leaders have given their unanimous support to the Brexit deal struck between the European Union and the UK. They urged the British Parliament to back Prime Minister Theresa May as she tries to get the Brexit package approved in time for the UK's withdrawal from the bloc at the end of March.
European Union leaders gathered in Brussels today to formally approve the Brexit deal struck between the UK and the EU. European Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker called Brexit a tragedy, saying the EU didn't want Britain to leave. But he added it respects the democratic mandate of the 2016 referendum and expressed confidence the British Parliament would ratify the agreement.
This is the deal, it's best possible, and the European Union will not change its fundamental position when it comes to this issue. So I do think that the British Parliament, because this is a wise parliament, will ratify this deal.
The EU's chief negotiator, Michel Barnier, described the 600-page treaty setting the terms for Britain's withdrawal from the European Union on March 29th as a good base to negotiate a future relationship.
We will remain allies, partners and friends.
The Netherlands Prime Minister, whose country is one of Britain's closest trading partners, praised May's handling of the negotiations. But he also had a warning for those in May's Conservative Party, as well as the Labour opposition, who argue that a better deal can still be done before Britain leaves in 4 months, saying this was the best deal going. One stumbling block had been the British territory of Gibraltar, which borders Spain. But after Spain's Prime Minister said he received reassurances that Madrid would get a say in Gibraltar's future ties with the EU, the Brexit package could go ahead. Now, the biggest question facing the EU is whether May's minority government can steer the deal through fierce resistance in the UK Parliament in the coming weeks. With prominent supporters and opponents of Brexit all expressing their unhappiness with the deal as it stands, May could still find herself on the losing end of this complicated and drawn-out process.
Protesters in Alabama are angry after police killed a black man by mistake. They thought he was the gunman in a shooting at a mall.
Look what happened. Walk up and shoot an innocent black man.
No justice! More than 200 demonstrators, including relatives, march outside the mall where 21-year-old Emantic Bradford was gunned down. An officer was responding to a shooting at the River Chase Galleria, and in the chaos, he shot Bradford. Police later acknowledged he was not the triggerman. The officer was placed on administrative leave while authorities search for the real shooter. Now to a proposed policy that could completely change the way asylum seekers enter America. Sources say Donald Trump's administration made a deal with Mexico's incoming government. That deal calls for keeping migrants in Mexico until their asylum claims are decided. But that process could take months or even years. Mexico's incoming interior minister denies any such plan exists. With 5,000 migrants camping out on the streets of Tijuana, sanitation conditions are dire. The mayor calls it a humanitarian crisis and is appealing to the United Nations for help. Meantime, 6,000 American troops are guarding the U.S. border and have authorization to use lethal force to stop illegal entries.
And still ahead on the news tonight. French protesters angry with fuel taxes clash with police. Commemoration for victims of the Stalin-era Ukraine famine.
Oh, 大師，你輩份咁高，何解喺度跳手指舞呢？
睇落就係跳舞，但係實際上我係同手指熱身。咁我就可以更加靈活運用發興全新論證網站嘅互動畫圖功能。
發興全新論證網站嘅互動畫圖功能？
冇錯啦，網站有唔同嘅畫圖工具，波動市況可以助你量度股價潛在升跌幅。
聽講個圖可以 save 低 send 俾朋友喎。
冇錯啦，畫完之後仲可以 send 俾親朋好友，分享睇法，集思廣益。所以話發興網係我呢個大師
同我呢個大師必備嘅投資網站。
And welcome back. Anger over rising fuel costs in France turned the streets of Paris into a war zone. That's where protesters clashed with police throughout the night. Tense clashes erupted on Saturday as police face off with demonstrators. More than 100,000 people joined demonstrations across France to protest against rising fuel taxes and Emmanuel Macron's presidency. As night fell in Paris, violence erupted as protesters began setting fires surrounding the famous Champs-Élysées Avenue. Anything not nailed down was thrown in to keep the flames burning. During the clashes, a trailer was set on fire and exploded. Demonstrators also hurled rocks and other projectiles at police. Police fired off special rubber balls along with tear gas and water cannons to quell the violence. Authorities scrambled to prevent an estimated 8,000 protesters from reaching the president's palace. For more than a week, protesters have taken to the streets clad in fluorescent yellow jackets. Day after day, they've blocked highways across the country with burning barricades and convoys of slow-moving trucks in an effort to obstruct access to fuel depots, shopping centers, and factories. France's interior minister accused far-right leader Marine Le Pen of fanning the protests in the capital.
On voit une évolution. à l'appel de Marine Le Pen, qui...
Christophe Castaner blamed Le Pen's ultra-right networks for triggering riots that ended up leaving several people injured. At least 19 people, including 4 police officers, were reported as being slightly hurt. The protests are in opposition to taxes French President Emmanuel Macron introduced last year on diesel and petrol. Macron insists the taxes are necessary to reduce France's dependence on fossil fuels. However, he has promised to lay out new plans to make the energy transition easier. But angry residents say that's not good enough. They're planning a new wave of protests next Saturday beneath the Eiffel Tower. The Interior Minister is calling for calm and promised to be tough on unruly crowds.
Tensions in Kosovo rose again after police arrested 3 ethnic Serbs, including 2 police officers, in connection with the killing this year of a leading Serb politician in the north of the country. The 3 men were arrested in the Serb-dominated town of Mitrovica, north of the capital Pristina. A 4th Serb was arrested for resisting police. A 5th person is still at large. Police say they have seized evidence for the investigation into Olivier Ivanovic's killing during raids at 4 locations. The arrest triggered protests by ethnic Serbs in various parts of the country. No violence was reported though.
Ukraine marked the 85th anniversary of a famine that killed millions of its residents. Addressing an audience from 50 countries, President Petro Poroshenko made it clear the Soviet famine was a man-made disaster. Known as the Holodomor, the famine took place between 1932 and 1933. Poroshenko said it was orchestrated by Soviet dictator Joseph Stalin. His goal was to force peasants to give up their land and join collective farms. In the end, an estimated 12 million Ukrainians died. Poroshenko called it an act of genocide aimed at rooting out Ukrainian nationalism.
Egypt has created a new high-powered human rights watchdog agency, but its primary mission isn't to protect Egyptians from violations. Instead, the body is aimed at protecting the government from allegations of rights abuses and defending it on the world stage. Egyptian officials have already started a campaign against false rumours and fake news, and have in some cases detained those who speak out. At the same time, the Egyptian government has sought to redefine or broaden human rights. It has declared new rights to fight terrorism and protect the state. Critics see that as an attempt to legitimize alleged abuses by security forces or draw the international community's attention away from political rights.
The mega bridge to Macau and Zhuhai recorded fewer passengers today. This after a new ticketing measure for mainland visitors was imposed. As of 4 p.m., about 46,000 passengers had passed through the Hong Kong port. The port recorded a passenger flow of around 62,000 at the same time last Sunday. Since yesterday, mainlanders must pre-order tickets online for port-to-port shuttle buses from Zhuhai to Hong Kong. Tickets can be retrieved with a QR code at the Zhuhai port.
The government has suggested ways to crack down on ticket scalping, such as lowering the ratio of tickets to pop concerts allocated to the event organisers' business partners. However, more details will only be available late next year. As Christy Leung reports, the performing industry has reservations about some of the proposed measures.
There have been growing calls for a clampdown on ticket touting in Hong Kong. The government has recently submitted a paper to lawmakers suggesting measures to address the issue. Currently, concert organizers are allowed to set aside up to 80% of the tickets for priority booking or internal sales. One of the proposed measures is to lower that ratio. Speaking to TVB News, Lisa Hui, Vice Chairlady of the Performing Industry Association, said the industry has reservations about the government's proposal. She said changing the ratio would affect the industry's flexibility and hurt its efforts to keep ticket prices affordable.
The flexibility gives us the resources to pitch the sponsor, to lower our costs, and to ensure we have a good quality, production quality of the shows and concerts. The industry always believe increasing fine and low amendment is the most important and the top priority, how to tackle the ticket touting problem.
The government said it needs time to study the issue and plans to come up with more details by the third quarter of 2019. Hui thinks that's too slow.
We think this is a very urgent case, and helping the government can set a timetable. Definitely should be with criminalize the case. Criminalize should be the most effective way to tackle the ticket stouting problem.
She added that during the transitional period, the industry has reached a consensus on certain measures, which have already been applied to certain concerts. These measures include suspending ticket sales at the box office and only distributing tickets to concert goers 14 days before the event. Christy Lung, TVB News.
And from all of us, thanks for joining us.